up? It's Cinema Shogun here, and if you follow me on Twitter, you already know this, but for those of you all who don't, the area where I live was impacted by Hurricane Idalia today. It was not as bad as what we expected. In fact, my specific area, was not really impacted that much at all. We got some high winds, some rain, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what it could have been, luckily. But living where I live, you get used to dealing with hurricanes. It kind of comes with the territory, if you will. It's not uncommon for my area to be affected by 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 hurricanes or tropical storms or tropical depressions a year. It just kind of becomes a yearly thing that you deal with. And more often than not, I ride these storms out, bunker down and ride them out. But you kind of got to play every storm differently. Sometimes when the storm's going to be real bad, I evacuate. But for the most part, I know, depending on where you live, you may watch the news and see these storms, and they look crazy, right? And don't get me wrong, they are. It's a very crazy situation being in the middle of a very powerful hurricane. It's unlike anything you'll ever experience, and I've experienced it, dozens of times at this point. But when you're seeing these clips on the news of whole towns underwater and the wind blowing the roofs off of houses and stuff, I want you all to understand that people down here, for the most part, a lot of them are riding these storms out. And they don't necessarily have bad attitudes about it. Down here, we make the best of these situations. So while you're watching the news and you see, streets flooded and roofs blowing off of homes and stuff, people are literally throwing hurricane parties and playing spades and drinking and having a good time. It's really weird. I wouldn't suggest that anyone do this, but it's just kind of the way of life here. But I got to thinking today, because don't get me wrong, nature, you never know what to expect from nature, right? You never know what to expect from Mother Nature. Mother Nature is unforgiving. But at the same time, people in these areas, you get so used to riding out these storms because once you deal with enough of these hurricanes, you grow and you learn what to expect. You learn what to do, what not to do, how to be prepared. But I can't help but feel like a lot of people, including myself, we've gotten so relaxed during these storms, some big, some small. We've gotten so relaxed because, it used to be that we were just up against Mother Nature. But I got to thinking about Lahaina and what's going on down in Maui. And I think that we have to start operating differently. Because it appears that we're no longer just up against Mother Nature. It looks like we're up against a lot of other forces as well. It looks as if we're up against the powers that be. I mean, in Maui, they weren't just up against hurricane-forced winds. They were not just up against a fire. They were up against a city official that cut the water off so they couldn't fight the flames. They were up against their own police force as their police force barricaded the road and would not let them escape and forced them into an oven, basically. So we're so used to down here in the South, we're so used to dealing with these storms. But we have to start realizing that you never know when something like what happened in Lahaina down in Maui, you never know when something like that is going to happen here. So if you're someone that's, like me, you're often the path of these hurricanes, I think that we need to start reacting accordingly. We have to start acting accordingly here because We're not up against what we used to be up against. There's a whole nother level to this stuff now. There's a whole nother layer here, people. And here in Florida, right before the storm hits, it just so happens that a lot of gas has been contaminated. Gas has been contaminated with diesel fuel. People's cars are breaking down. Their generators aren't working. Tons of gas stations shut down. So people in the path of this storm, Idalia, which luckily, it didn't get as bad as what we thought it may be. But a lot of the people in the path of this storm, they had no gas. And to make matters even worse, now their cars are messed up, their generators are broken, all types of stuff, because it just so happens that right before the hurricane hits, right in the path of the hurricane, we have this random gas contamination that caused all of these gas stations to shut down. Hundreds of people's cars no longer working. Generators destroyed. Is that just a coincidence as well? Maybe. But if I learned anything from Maui, I've learned that a lot of these coincidences aren't just coincidences. I'm past that point now. I'm way past that point. And the moral of the story, the point that I'm trying to get to here is, people, for those of us who live in these areas where we're so used to riding out these storms and we feel like we know what to expect, it's time for people to understand, including myself. We have to come to the realization now that we're dealing with something else. We're dealing with a whole nother level. Because you never know when it's time where maybe they want to turn your area into a 15-minute city. Maybe they have interest in your area where you live. You never know, people. But as we're on the topic of Lahaina, things are continuing to just go south down there. Lies are being told. The truth is obviously not being told. The death toll seems to be almost stagnant. No word on all of these missing people, missing kids. And everyone in the area is claiming that these agencies that are down there are working against them. But I'm going to go ahead and roll this clip. I want you all to listen to what this woman has to say. And then I'll be right back with a few more thoughts.
How do you let this happen? Why did they leave the fire in the morning, knowing that it was caused by a down power line? And why didn't they shut off the power, knowing that there was 90-mile-per-hour winds coming? Because what, we wouldn't have water? What about the backup generators? Ask the guys in county with water that run the water plants. They have backup generators for this, and there's no homes to pump water to anyway. Why weren't the sirens sounded? We're not stupid. We would have heard the sirens and came outside and seen there was a fire. We wouldn't run Mocha into raging flames. No emergency alerts sent to our phones. And then there's no water. They shut off the water for what? Conservation for what? Kaanapali? Kapulua? So many questions, and then our leaders get on the news and they do their press conferences from the safety of their offices in their suits and ties, talk about how they're helping our community. We haven't seen them. Why do we have to fight to get into Lahaina? In the beginning, to help people. You have people coming on boats. You have people coming in helicopters. Our government should be ashamed of themselves. Not just failing us with the fire to begin with, but even in the aftermath. As they start, I dread opening my phone as they release names. Because, we know people. Lahaina's small. And they haven't even gotten to the kids yet. And it's just so crazy to me. I wake up and it's like, how did they let this happen? Sorry. I'm just frustrated. And not only are we dealing with the loss of our town, our homes, everything we've ever known, loss of life, we have to have moratoriums put in place to freeze all real estate sales in Lahaina because people are trying to buy up homes and buy up land that still has their grandparents or their children, their bodies still inside, and then there's this fight for water. We live at the base of one of the wettest spots in the world. How, make it make sense. How does a small town at the base one of the wettest spots in the world run out of water to fight a fire? Water gets shut off in my neighborhood anyway, in Holly Camp, around between 4:50 and 4:30 is when I noticed the water. There's just nothing coming out. It was barely a drip. Where's the water going? To the neighborhoods that conveniently didn't burn? Lanyo Poko, Pu'unoa, in Pumana, Kanapali Hillside, all of those homes are still standing, but the heartbeat of Lahaina is now literally in ash. And I'm so grateful that everyone who has been pouring their love into Lahaina, people who have sent in donations and sent in their well wishes and their prayers and sending us their light and amplifying our voices and sharing our posts and giving us a chance. We're a small rock in the middle of the ocean, and everyone out there that's sharing our message with the world, even and just going to the hubs in Lahaina and being there from day one and just seeing the help and how it's grown and how everything is unfolding, and just the support and the feeling of community out there, and seeing that we have that kind of love for Lahaina. It's very healing in itself. And being around, like I said before, a home isn't always four walls and a roof. Sometimes it's within yourself. Sometimes it's within people of your community. And that's why I love going into Lahaina, and I love seeing people from our community, because it's hard to not be in Lahaina and being away from the people, being on the other side. I'm so grateful that we have family that have opened up their homes to us and given us a safe place to be, somewhere warm, somewhere safe, somewhere we feel comfortable laying our head at night, since the night of the fire. But it's my heart is so out there, and I just want to go home. And I know I speak for everyone out there from Lahaina when we say we're so grateful to be alive, and we're grateful that we have someplace to go, but we just want to go home. Who knows what the road looks like ahead of us, how long it's going to take. I know we're going to get there because there's support in our community to help us rebuild is strong. They chose the wrong fucking town to come into and try to push their weight, because we push back. Anyway, sorry to come on here and just cry. I was just, after that interview yesterday, just got me thinking again, and so many questions, so many questions. And then to add assault to injury, fucking Joe Biden is gonna fly in. Pretty sure he's already here, but he's supposed to come in to Lahaina on Monday. Anyways, if I end up, I don't even know if I'm gonna end up on ABC News or not with that interview, but if I do, tag me so I can see it. I know I'm gonna rile up or piss off some people, not our community, not the people who have their hearts in the right place for Lahaina, but other people. Because if there's anything I do well, is run this mouth and tell you how I feel.
How did they let this happen? Because they wanted this to happen. There are some very strange details about this whole story. There are these weird coincidences once again. that almost make it look like this situation was planned. It almost looks like they knew that there was going to be a fire or some type of catastrophe in this area before it happened, which is why the emergency proclamation was put in place weeks before the fire even came. So there's so many weird details here. But regardless of how the fire started, when she says, how could they let this happen? I mean, if they did not know that these fires were going to happen, if this was not pre-planned, I know it may sound crazy to suggest, and I'm not saying that this was planned. I'm just saying there are a few very strange coincidences here that makes it look like people had prior knowledge that something was going to go down in this area. But regardless of that, the decisions that were made as this fire was raging, they're very telling. They're extremely telling. So maybe they're not behind causing the fire. Maybe they didn't start the fire. But at the very least, they didn't put it out. At the very least, it looks as if they were like, oh, okay, Lahaina's burning, let it burn. It looks as if they wanted it to just burn down, which is why they wouldn't give them any water to put the fires out. And I made this point a few videos back, and I want to make it here again. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but when you think about it, it's just kind of common sense. In my opinion, I just feel as if in the year 2023, we should be more effective at fighting fires than what we are. Like, look at how advanced our society has become. Think about all of the technology that you've been introduced to just in the last couple of years. We're now at a point where we have artificial intelligence. AI is real. But we're still fighting fires in the same way we were fighting fires 1,000 years ago, with a little bit of water. I mean, really think about it. In the year 2023, with all of the advancements in technology, surely something like what happened in Lahaina should never have been allowed to happen, because we should have some type of technology, new advancements and tools, new strategies over time that we've acquired to better fight these fires. But it's like nothing. And it kind of feels like they probably know how to do a better job at fighting these forest fires and these wildfires, but they kind of don't want to do a better job at fighting them. You know what I mean? Because surely, if they were really that committed to making sure that forest fires were no longer a thing, surely they could come up with some new ways to fight fire. But no, they'll come up with new ways for you to watch, streaming shows on your telephone. They'll come up with new ways for food to be delivered to your house. They'll come up with new ways for you to spend your money, but they're not coming up with many new ways to save your life. I mean, sure, you could say there's advancements in medicine, but think about the side effects. It seems like anything that you take that is supposed to make one thing better, it makes 10 other things worse. So when you really think about it, what's even going on in today's world? Why are we not working on the things that matter? Why are we focusing on things that don't matter at all, like NFTs? Who cares about NFTs? Yet we're working on NFTs and artificial intelligence, but we're not working on fighting fires better? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I know that maybe sounds kind of weird. It's kind of spacey talk, if you will, but really think about it and just ask yourself, Why haven't we advanced in ways that matter like that? Why is our society moving in such a strange direction without first, conquering, small things like how to fight a freaking fire? We're sending rockets into outer space every other day. We got billionaires shooting people into outer space themselves, but firefighters still can't put out a brush fire. We could fight world wars. We could drop nuclear bombs, but a simple brush fire can't be put out in the year 2023. Make it make sense. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next video.